Grace woke up with a jolt. 6:00 a.m. Same as it ever was. She yawned, a tired little sound in the quiet apartment. James and Thomas, her little rascals, were still snoring away in their room. If only they knew how close they were to having ice cream for breakfast every day. If only she knew how to pull off a heist. She pulled on her work uniform, the same white shirt and black pants she wore every day to the Emperor's Crown restaurant. No time for breakfast today. Her stomach rumbled, but rent waited for no one, and neither did Mr. Henderson, the grumpy head chef. The restaurant was already a whirlwind of activity when she arrived. Chefs yelled orders, waiters zoomed around with trays of fancy food, and the smell of 1,000 spices filled the air. Grace headed straight for the kitchen, her battlefield. Dishes piled high, greasy counters, overflowing bins. It was a never-ending war against messiness. But Grace was a warrior. She scrubbed, she swept, she even wrestled with the overflowing dumpster in the back alley, and sometimes the dumpster won. As she scrubbed a particularly stubborn pot, her mind drifted to Leo, her husband. He always had a joke to crack, even when things were tough. He used to say, "Grace, we're like that cheap wine, we get better with age." He'd be heartbroken to see her struggling like this. A tear slipped down her cheek, but she quickly wiped it away. No time for crying. There were crumbs to conquer. The other workers weren't much help. Some were nice enough, but others, well, let's just say they wouldn't share their fancy leftovers with her, even if she begged. And she wouldn't beg. She had her pride, even if her stomach was staging a rebellion. Finally, her shift ended. Walking home, Grace did some quick math in her head. Rent, food, those new shoes James needed. It just didn't add up. Maybe she could sell her hair. Or start a worm farm? Back at the apartment, James and Thomas tackled her with hugs. "Mommy!" they shouted, their faces lit up like Christmas trees. Suddenly, the exhaustion melted away. Those smiles were worth more than all the fancy food in the Emperor's Crown. After homework and bedtime stories, Grace collapsed onto the couch. She was tired, broke, and probably smelled like old fish. But she had her boys, and that's all that mattered. Tomorrow was another day, another mountain of dishes, and another chance to dream of a better life. Maybe, just maybe, she'd find a winning lottery ticket stuck to the bottom of a soup bowl. A girl could dream, couldn't she? Grace's morning routine at the Emperor's Crown was like a well-rehearsed dance. Scrub, sweep, polish, repeat. But today, something was different. As she cleaned up after the lunch rush, her eyes landed on a stack of plates piled next to the bin. Plates piled high with half-eaten steaks, untouched salads, and lonely little sausages. Her stomach did a flip-flop. Those discarded scraps could feed her family for days. James and Thomas were probably at school right now, their tummies rumbling, dreaming of something more exciting than watery porridge. A wave of guilt washed over her. Stealing was wrong, even if it was just unwanted leftovers. But the image of her boys' happy faces pushed away the guilt. She looked around. The coast was clear. With a racing heart, she scooped up the abandoned food and hid it in her bag. That evening, the little apartment was filled with squeals of delight. "Mommy, are we having a party?" Thomas asked, his eyes wide with wonder as he eyed the plate of sausages. "It's a surprise?" Grace said, trying to sound casual. Inside, she felt like a superhero, a food-rescuing ninja mom. James, ever the curious one, piped up, But where did it all come from? Grace froze. Some kind customers gave it to me, she mumbled, hoping her ears weren't turning red. The boys, bless their innocent hearts, didn't question it. They dug into the feast like they hadn't eaten in days, which, to be fair, wasn't far from the truth. Seeing them happy and well-fed filled Grace with a fierce joy. This became their little secret. Every day, Grace would scan the discarded plates, rescuing forgotten treasures like a culinary Robin Hood. She even started a game with the boys, making up funny stories about the picky eaters who left behind perfectly good food. This princess only eats purple food, or this knight was too busy fighting dragons to finish his potatoes. The change in her boys was remarkable. They had more energy, their cheeks were rosy, and they even started growing taller. Grace felt a surge of pride. She was providing for her family, even if it meant bending the rules a little. But like all good things, this secret couldn't last forever. One night, as Grace was playing Find the Hidden Sausages in the Discard Pile, a chilling thought hit her. What if someone notices? Her heart hammered in her chest. She imagined Mr. Henderson, the grumpy chef, cornering her with a meat cleaver, yelling, "You're the sausage thief." But then she looked at the worn shoes of her little boys, their patched-up clothes, and the way their eyes lit up at dinner time. No, she wouldn't stop. She'd just be extra careful. She became a master of disguise, using different routes to the bin, and even humming innocently while she smuggled food into her bag. Life threw another curveball her way, a furry one. A stray dog, all skinny ribs and sad eyes, started following her home from work. The boys, of course, fell head over heels. "His name is Bruno," James declared, and that was that. Another mouth to feed, but Bruno's goofy grin and wagging tail brought so much joy to their little family, it was worth every extra scrap. Then, the rumors started. A new owner was coming to the Emperor's crown. Some whispered he was a young hotshot, ready to shake things up. Others worried about job losses and stricter rules. Grace felt a knot of anxiety in her stomach. One morning, a fancy car pulled up outside the restaurant. Out stepped a man who looked like he belonged in a magazine, all sharp suits and confident smiles. This was Nick Farah, the new owner. He gave a rousing speech about making the Emperor's Crown the best restaurant in the city. Grace, however, mostly noticed his sharp eyes that seemed to miss nothing. And then came the cameras. Shiny new security cameras installed everywhere. Nick said it was for safety and efficiency, but Grace felt a shiver down her spine. Every time she moved, she felt those unblinking eyes following her. Collecting leftovers became a high-stakes mission. She'd dart around corners, hide behind shelves, and even pretend to tie her shoelaces while she discreetly scooped up fallen fries. It was exhausting, but the thought of her boys kept her going. One day, while Grace was wrestling with a particularly stubborn bin bag, it seemed to be full of bricks. She heard a voice behind her. "Need a hand with that?" Her heart leaped into her throat. She turned slowly, bracing herself for the worst. "Heard about the new boss?" the chef whispered, leaning in conspiratorially. "They say he's got eyes everywhere and a nose for trouble. One wrong move and you're out." Grace gulped. She pictured those shiny new cameras, their lenses gleaming like hungry eyes. She thought of James and Thomas, their happy faces, their growing appetites. She had to be even more careful now. The pressure cooker intensified when Nick announced a surprise inspection. Everyone scurried around like ants under a magnifying glass, desperate to impress the new boss. Grace scrubbed and polished with a fervor she didn't know she possessed, hoping her hard work would overshadow her nightly escapades. But Nick, it seemed, had a knack for noticing things. One evening, while reviewing the security footage, his eyes narrowed as he saw a familiar figure sneaking around the kitchen after closing time. He watched as Grace gathered discarded food, her movements swift and practiced. A frown creased his forehead. The next day, Grace received the dreaded summons to Nick's office. Her heart hammered in her chest as she walked through the door, her mind racing with worst-case scenarios. "Grace," Nick began, his voice stern, "I've been reviewing the security footage." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Grace stammered, trying to explain about her children, their empty stomachs, and the irresistible lure of abandoned pizza crusts. Tears welled up in her eyes. Nick listened intently, his expression unreadable. When she finished, a long silence hung in the air. Then, to Grace's surprise, he spoke softly, "I want to see where you live." Confusion mingled with a flicker of hope. That afternoon, Nick followed Grace home. He saw the cramped apartment, the threadbare furniture, the meager contents of the cupboards. He saw James and Thomas, their faces lighting up as they hugged their mother, oblivious to the weight of her worries. Something shifted in Nick's gaze. He saw not a thief, but a mother desperate to provide for her children. Shame washed over him for his hasty judgment. "Grace," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I understand now. No more stealing. You'll receive a bonus to buy food for your family, and I'll make sure the boys get proper meals from the restaurant." Tears streamed down Grace's face. Relief, gratitude, and disbelief washed over her in waves. She had been seen, not as a criminal, but as a human being struggling to survive. And in that moment, her faith in humanity was restored. The Emperor's Crown, once a source of fear and anxiety, became a place of hope and kindness. Grace continued to work hard, but now with a lighter heart and a full pantry. And every night, as she tucked her boys into bed, she whispered a silent thank you to the new boss, who had shown her compassion when she needed it most. "Thank you, Mr. Farah," Grace whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "I don't know how to repay your kindness." "Just keep doing your job with the same dedication," Nick replied, a genuine smile warming his face. That night, Grace walked home with a lightness in her step she hadn't felt in years. The future, once a dark and uncertain tunnel, now held a glimmer of light. She could provide for her children without resorting to desperate measures. As she drifted off to sleep, a feeling of profound gratitude washed over her. The next morning, the atmosphere at the Emperor's Crown felt different. The air buzzed with a newfound optimism. Grace smiled at her coworkers, a silent understanding passing between them. Nick, too, felt a change within himself. Seeing Grace's struggles had opened his eyes to a world beyond his own privileged upbringing. He called a staff meeting announcing new policies to ensure fair treatment and support for all employees. Cheers erupted as he introduced an additional bonus and a meal program to alleviate financial burdens. Grace felt a wave of relief wash over her, knowing she wasn't alone in her struggles. After the meeting, Nick handed Grace an envelope containing her first bonus. "Use this for whatever you need," he said kindly. Tears welled up in Grace's eyes as she thanked him. That afternoon, she went on a shopping spree, filling her basket with fresh fruits, vegetables, and other healthy treats, she could never afford before. The joy of providing for her children brought tears of happiness. That night, a feast graced their humble table. "Mama, where did you get all this?" Thomas asked, his eyes wide with wonder. "It's thanks to Mr. Farah," Grace replied, her heart overflowing with gratitude. "He's helping us." As they ate, a sense of peace settled over Grace. The food, Nick's support, and the promise of a brighter future filled her with hope. In the following days, life took on a new rhythm. The bonus and the restaurant meals eased Grace's financial burden. A sense of camaraderie blossomed among the staff, fostered by Nick's compassionate leadership. Nick, inspired by Grace's resilience, continued to learn and grow. He spent more time with his employees, listening to their concerns and celebrating their successes. The Emperor's Crown transformed into a place where everyone felt valued and supported. And so, the story of Grace, the sausage-smuggling single mom, became a tale of resilience, compassion, and the power of human connection. It was a reminder that even in the darkest of times, kindness and understanding can light the way forward. One afternoon, Nick invited Grace to his office for a casual chat. "Grace," he began, "I've been thinking about how we can further support our employees. Do you have any suggestions?" Grace, surprised by his openness, considered for a moment. "Well, Mr. Farah," she replied, "a training program could be beneficial. Many of us want to improve our skills, but lack the resources or time." Nick nodded thoughtfully. "Excellent idea, Grace. We'll implement a training program for all interested employees. I want everyone to have the opportunity to grow." Grace left his office feeling valued and empowered. Not only was she receiving help, but she was also being given a chance to build a better future. That night, as she watched her children sleep, she vowed to seize every opportunity that came her way. Over time, Nick's new policies bore fruit. The Emperor's Crown thrived, with a happier, more motivated staff. Grace's life continued to improve, but beneath the surface, a new challenge brewed. While reviewing inventory records, Nick discovered discrepancies. Ingredients and products were going missing, and it wasn't simple human error. Determined to uncover the truth, he installed more security cameras and scrutinized the footage. After days of observation, the culprit was revealed: John, the head chef. Nick was stunned. John was a respected member of the team, a culinary maestro. He decided to confront him directly. "John," Nick stated, his voice grave, "I've noticed discrepancies in the inventory. The security footage shows you taking items without authorization. Can you explain?" John's face paled. His voice trembled as he confessed, "Mr. Farah, I'm so sorry. I'm in a desperate situation. I have debts with dangerous people, and my family is at risk." I didn't know where else to turn. Nick absorbed this confession. Though angered by the theft, he recognized the desperation driving John's actions. "John, what you did is wrong and has consequences. However, I understand your situation. I want to help, but first, we need to fix this." John looked up, surprised. "Help me, Mr. Farah." "I wasn't expecting that." Nick nodded. "We all make mistakes, John. I believe in second chances. I'll pay your debts and help you get out of this mess, but in return, I need your commitment to be honest and loyal from now on," Nick stated, his gaze steady. Tears welled up in John's eyes. "Thank you, Mr. Farah. I won't let you down." I'll do everything I can to redeem myself." That afternoon, Nick accompanied John to settle his debts. The encounter with the traffickers was tense, but they managed to resolve the situation peacefully. John, overwhelmed with gratitude, vowed to regain Nick's trust. The next day, Nick addressed the staff, emphasizing the importance of honesty and loyalty. "If you're ever facing difficulties," he assured them, "come to me. Together, we'll find a solution." Grace, observing this, felt a surge of gratitude for her workplace and its compassionate leader. John's story resonated with her own struggles, reminding her of the transformative power of Nick's help. In the following weeks, John worked with renewed dedication, exceeding expectations in the kitchen, and even organizing workshops to share his culinary expertise with colleagues. His positive attitude became contagious. Meanwhile, Grace embraced opportunities for growth, participating in workshops and volunteering for new initiatives. Her life, though still challenging, was steadily improving thanks to Nick's support and the sense of community at the Emperor's Crown. Weeks turned into months, and the restaurant flourished. John, given a second chance, thrived, his passion for cooking reignited. One morning, Nick called him into the office with a new proposition. "John, your transformation has been remarkable," Nick began. "I have an idea that could benefit both the restaurant and the community." Intrigued, John leaned forward. "What is it, Mr. Farah?" "I want you to start a cooking training program for at-risk youth and those needing a fresh start," Nick explained. "You're an exceptional chef, and I believe you can make a difference in their lives." John's face lit up. "I'd love to, Mr. Farah. Cooking saved me, and I'm eager to pay it forward." And so, the Emperor's Crown launched its culinary training program. John poured his heart into teaching, and soon, the restaurant buzzed with eager learners from all walks of life. Grace, inspired, volunteered to support the program, ensuring the participants had everything they needed. Nick, meanwhile, continued to foster a supportive work environment, connecting with his employees and seeking ways to improve their well-being. His relationship with Grace also deepened, evolving into a friendship built on mutual respect and understanding. He often sought her out for conversations, valuing her perspective and clear-headedness. One afternoon, after a cooking class, Nick invited Grace for coffee. "Grace," he began, "I've noticed your dedication to the training program. You've become an integral part of this community." Grace blushed. "Thank you, Mr. Farah. This place and its people have given me so much. I want to give back." Nick nodded. "That's admirable. I've been thinking about how we can further improve the restaurant and expand our impact. I want you to be part of that process." Touched, Grace replied, "I'd love to help, Mr. Farah. This place has changed my life and my children's lives. I'm incredibly grateful." Their conversation flowed effortlessly, fueled by shared dreams and a desire to make a difference. A deeper connection blossomed between them, rooted in mutual respect and admiration. The cooking program energized the restaurant. Customers noticed the positive atmosphere and John's revitalized passion. His redemption story inspired everyone. Weeks turned into months, and the Emperor's Crown thrived. The staff worked with unprecedented unity, and the training program flourished. Nick and Grace spent more time together, their bond deepening. Nick even took an interest in James and Thomas, inviting them to restaurant events. Grace appreciated his kindness towards her children. One sunny afternoon, Nick organized a picnic for the staff and their families. James and Thomas gleefully joined the fun, while Grace watched with a contented smile. Nick approached her, asking, "Would you like to take a walk?" Grateful for a quiet moment, Grace agreed. As they strolled through the park, Nick opened up about his life and his vision for the restaurant. "I always wanted to do something meaningful," he confessed, "something with a positive impact. Knowing your story and seeing how a little help can make a big difference has been transformative." Grace listened intently, feeling a warmth spread through her. "You've done much more than just help, Nick," she replied, her voice sincere. "You've changed lives, including mine. I don't know how to thank you enough." Nick smiled warmly. "Seeing you and your children happy is thanks enough. I've learned so much from you, Grace. Your strength and dedication are admirable." Their walk ended, but the conversation continued late into the day. As the sun dipped below the horizon, a realization dawned on them both. Their feelings ran deeper than friendship and gratitude. A genuine connection with the potential for something more had blossomed between them. In the following days, Nick became even more involved in Grace's and her children's lives. He often invited them to his home for dinners and activities. James and Thomas quickly grew fond of him, seeing him as a caring father figure. Nick's presence brought a stability and joy they hadn't felt in years. One evening, during dinner at Nick's house, James innocently asked, "Mom, can Mr. Nick be our new dad?" Grace and Nick exchanged surprised glances. Nick, with a gentle smile, replied, "James, I can't replace your dad, but I'll always be here for you and your brother to help and support you in any way I can." Grace felt a wave of emotion at his sincere response. Later, after the children were asleep, Nick and Grace talked about James's question and their own feelings. "Grace," Nick began, taking her hand, "you and your children mean the world to me. I don't know what the future holds, but I want to be here for you, to support you, to be a part of your lives." Tears welled up in Grace's eyes. "Nick," she replied, "your presence has already made a huge difference in our lives. You mean a lot to me too. I want to keep building this together, step by step." From that night on, the relationship deepened. They continued their work at the restaurant, supporting the community and each other. John, witnessing their blossoming connection, felt even more motivated in his own journey of redemption. Time flew by, and December arrived, bringing the festive spirit of Christmas. Grace, James, Thomas, and Nick made plans to celebrate together. It would be the first Christmas in a long time that Grace could provide a truly special celebration for her children, and the excitement was palpable. One afternoon, Nick arrived at Grace's apartment with a large, colorful box. "Let's decorate together," he announced with a grin. James and Thomas jumped for joy. "Yes, let's put up the Christmas tree," they shouted, bouncing around him. Together, they unpacked the decorations, colorful baubles, twinkling lights, and shiny ornaments. Laughter filled the apartment as they adorned the tree. Nick put on Christmas music, adding to the festive atmosphere. Grace, watching her children's joy, felt a warmth spread through her heart. Once the tree was complete, they admired their handiwork. "This is the most beautiful tree we've ever had," exclaimed Thomas, his eyes shining. "And we did it together," Nick added, smiling at Grace. The following days were filled with Christmas preparations. Nick invited Grace and the children to his house to bake cookies and make crafts. With each activity, their bond grew stronger. James and Thomas began to see Nick as an integral part of their family. On Christmas Eve, Nick hosted a special dinner at the restaurant for all the employees and their families. The hall was decked with festive decorations, and a grand feast awaited them, prepared by John and the culinary trainees. Grace and her children arrived, dressed in their finest clothes, thanks to a generous Christmas bonus from Nick. James and Thomas, dazzled by the lights and festive atmosphere, felt like they were in a fairy tale. During dinner, Nick raised his glass for a toast. "I want to thank everyone for their hard work and dedication this year," he announced. "Together, we've created not just a successful restaurant, but a true community. I especially want to thank Grace and her children for being a constant source of inspiration and strength. Merry Christmas to everyone." Everyone raised their glasses, feeling the warmth of camaraderie and Christmas spirit. The dinner was a resounding success, filled with laughter, shared stories, and heartfelt moments. Afterward, gifts were distributed to all the children. James and Thomas received brand new bicycles, a gift beyond their wildest dreams. Their eyes sparkled with excitement as they thanked Nick. "Thank you, Mr. Nick," they exclaimed in unison. "This is the best Christmas present ever." Grace, watching this scene, couldn't hold back tears of happiness. Nick approached her and gently took her hand. "This is just the beginning, Grace," he whispered. "I want you and your children to have everything you deserve." That night, back at their apartment, exhausted but filled with joy, they sat together admiring the Christmas tree and its twinkling lights. Grace reflected on how much her life had changed since Nick entered it. Her children were happy, their future was bright, and she had found new hope and love. The new year began with renewed optimism and a sense of shared purpose. The Emperor's Crown continued to thrive, a testament to the power of compassion, second chances, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. Seeing Grace's potential, Nick decided to nurture her growth beyond her role as a mother and employee. He wanted to empower her with the skills to manage the restaurant's financial and operational aspects. "Grace," Nick began one afternoon, "I've been thinking about how to help you reach your full potential. I want to teach you about the financial and operational management of the restaurant." Grace, surprised and excited, eagerly agreed. "Thank you, Nick. I'm willing to learn everything I can." And so began a new chapter in Grace's life. Nick dedicated time after work to teach her financial concepts like budgeting, expense tracking, and the importance of saving. He also guided her through the intricacies of restaurant operations, from menu planning to inventory management. Understanding these numbers is crucial for making informed decisions, Nick explained one day while reviewing the accounting books. Grace, with focused attention and a thirst for knowledge, absorbed the information. Though initially overwhelmed, her determination and Nick's patient guidance made the learning process rewarding. She steadily gained confidence in her newfound skills. Meanwhile, John continued his cooking classes, and Grace, eager to contribute, offered to help coordinate them. James and Thomas even participated, discovering a passion for cooking. One day, during a class, John asked Grace to demonstrate AB camel sauce. Though nervous, she skillfully prepared the sauce, explaining each step to the attentive students. James and Thomas beamed with pride. The cooking workshops fostered a sense of community and belonging, providing a safe and nurturing environment for the participants to learn and grow. Nick continued Grace's financial education, emphasizing the importance of long-term savings and wise investments. "I want you to be prepared for anything, Grace," he stressed. Financial stability will give you peace of mind. Empowered by her growing knowledge and bonuses, Grace began saving diligently and planning for her children's future. She also realized that her newfound skills could allow her to take on more responsibility at the restaurant. Recognizing her growth and commitment, Nick offered Grace a promotion to management assistant. "You'll be helping me with planning and executing daily operations," he explained. Excited and honored, Grace accepted. This new role promised not only financial improvement, but also further opportunities for growth. Nick's confidence in her fueled her motivation. Grace's life had transformed remarkably. With Nick's support, she had not only improved her financial situation, but also found new purpose and direction. Their relationship had blossomed, and James and Thomas saw Nick as a father figure. The future looked bright. On a sunny Saturday, Nick organized a charity event at the restaurant to support families in need. The energy was infectious, with employees, customers, and community members working together towards a common goal. Grace, in her new role, coordinated the event with efficiency and enthusiasm. During the event, Nick surprised Grace with a heartfelt speech. "Today, I want to recognize someone very special," he announced, smiling at Grace. Grace has shown incredible strength and dedication. She has overcome many adversities and become a leader here at the Emperor's Crown. Thanks to her and all of you, we have created something wonderful. Tears welled up in Grace's eyes as she received a warm round of applause. She felt immense gratitude for everything Nick had done for her and her children. As the successful event drew to a close, Nick, with a satisfied smile, decided to retrieve some important documents he had forgotten at home. He promised to return quickly and bid farewell to Grace with a warm embrace. "I won't be long. I'll be back soon," he said, giving James and Thomas a final kiss on the forehead. Driving through the quiet streets, Nick reflected on how fortunate he was to have met Grace and her children. He cherished the happy memories they had shared and how his life had gained new purpose by helping those in need. "I'm lucky to have them in my life," he thought, a warm feeling filling his heart. Suddenly, a car speeding towards him appeared, zigzagging erratically across the road. The driver seemed to have lost control. Nick's reflexes quickened as he tried to maneuver to avoid the impact. "No, no, no, no," he thought, fear gripping him. Time seemed to slow down as the other car approached inexorably. Nick gripped the steering wheel tightly, his thoughts racing. Grace, the kids. It can't end like this. Images of Grace, James, and Thomas flooded his mind, and the thought of never seeing them again tore at his soul. The crash was inevitable. The sound of twisting metal and shattering glass filled the air. The impact was brutal. Nick felt sharp pain coursing through his body as the car rolled. Darkness began to overtake his vision, but in those final moments, he could only think of Grace and the children. Back at the restaurant, the atmosphere was festive and joyful. Grace was busy helping to clean up after the event, while James and Thomas played with other children, laughing and enjoying the moment. Everything seemed perfect until Grace's phone rang. "Are you a relative of Nick Farah?" asked a voice on the other end. "He has been in an accident and is in critical condition. We need you to come to the hospital as soon as possible." Grace's world stopped. "Nick," she whispered, her voice trembling. Unable to hold back tears, she dropped everything and rushed to the hospital with James and Thomas by her side. As she drove, Grace's thoughts raced. This can't be true. Nick has to be okay. The children need him. I need him. He can't leave us now." Fear and desperation engulfed her, but she tried to stay strong for her children, who were scared and confused. Upon arriving at the hospital, Grace was met by a doctor with a grave expression. "Ma'am, Nick has suffered multiple severe injuries. We are doing everything we can, but his condition is very critical." Devastated, Grace clung to her children as they waited for news. The hours passed slowly, each minute an eternity. She remembered all the moments shared with Nick, his kindness, his unwavering support, and how he had brought light into her life during the darkest times. Finally, the doctor returned with a somber expression. "I'm very sorry," he said softly. "We did everything we could, but the injuries were too severe. Nick did not survive the accident." Grace felt the world collapse around her. Tears flowed freely as she embraced James and Thomas. The children, confused and frightened, also cried, realizing that someone very special to them was gone. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions for Grace. The restaurant and the community were in mourning, everyone remembering Nick as a generous and compassionate man. In the midst of her grief, Grace realized the magnitude of Nick's impact on her life. He had left a legacy of kindness and love. Though his absence was heartbreaking, Grace decided to honor his memory by continuing his vision. With the help of the restaurant staff and the community, she vowed to keep the spirit of the Emperor's crown alive and continue helping those in need. At an emotional farewell ceremony, Grace addressed those present. "Nick taught us all the true meaning of compassion and service. Although his time with us was short, his impact will last forever. We will carry on honoring his memory in every act of kindness and every smile we can bring to those who need it most. You taught me to be strong," she sobbed, "but now I feel so weak." In the midst of her sorrow, Grace remembered Nick's words about compassion and serving others. "We will carry on honoring his memory with every act of kindness," he had said during his farewell speech. Although the pain was overwhelming, Grace knew she had to find a way to move forward, not just for herself, but also for James and Thomas. Life had taught her resilience, and even though it seemed impossible now, she knew she had to find the strength within herself to honor Nick's legacy and continue his mission. As winter turned to spring, the pain of losing Nick remained, but Grace began to find glimpses of strength amidst her sadness. On the darkest days, she clung to the memories of Nick's encouraging words, his voice echoing in her mind like a beacon of hope. "Never underestimate your ability to overcome challenges, Grace," she recalled him saying during one of their many lessons. "You have an inner strength you don't even know about. Tap into that strength and trust yourself." One morning, as she sipped coffee in the kitchen, surrounded by restaurant management documents, she felt a surge of determination. "I can't let everything Nick worked for fall apart," she thought. "He believed in me. It's time I believe in myself too." Determined to honor Nick's memory, Grace rose with newfound resolve. She knew she had the skills and knowledge to lead the Emperor's crown. Nick had taught her not only about finances and management, but also about leadership and compassion. She was the right person to carry on his legacy. Gathering the restaurant staff, Grace stood before them, a mixture of nerves and determination in her voice. "I know these past months have been hard on all of us," she began, her voice firm yet emotional. "We've lost someone very dear, but we can't let that stop us. Nick taught us the importance of unity, compassion, and dedication. With his legacy in mind, I commit to leading this restaurant and continuing his vision." The employees looked at her with respect and support. John, the chef who had been given a second chance thanks to Nick, was the first to speak. "We're with you, Grace. We know how much Nick meant to you, to all of us. We move forward together." With the support of her team, Grace began to implement the knowledge and skills she had acquired. She resumed financial planning, ensuring every expense was justified and every investment well considered. She met with suppliers, renegotiated contracts, and sought new opportunities to improve the restaurant. Grace also focused on maintaining the positive and welcoming atmosphere that Nick had created. She continued to support the culinary training program led by John, expanding it to include more young people from the neighborhood. James and Thomas, inspired by their mother's example, began helping more at the restaurant, showing a growing interest in both cooking and management. With a new perspective and renewed energy, Grace threw herself into her work with more dedication than ever. She organized community events at the restaurant, raising funds for charitable causes and strengthening ties with the community. She implemented new ideas to improve the menu and customer experience, ensuring that the Emperor's Crown remained a special place for everyone. The employees, inspired by her leadership, worked with enthusiasm and commitment. The atmosphere in the restaurant was filled with positive and hopeful energy. Customers noticed the difference and began frequenting the place even more, drawn not only by the delicious food, but also by the spirit of community and solidarity that Grace had cultivated. The months following the tragedy brought a period of transformation and growth for the Emperor's Crown. Under Grace's determined and compassionate leadership, the restaurant not only survived Nick's loss, but thrived in ways no one had anticipated. Grace fully embraced her role as a leader, utilizing the knowledge and skills that Nick had passed on to her. She implemented a series of changes and improvements that quickly began to yield positive results. Her first measure was to strengthen the employee bonus program, a system Nick had initiated and one that Grace knew she had to continue and expand. "The success of this restaurant depends on each one of you," Grace announced during a staff meeting. Nick believed in recognizing and rewarding effort and dedication, and so do I. "Starting today, we will increase bonuses for those who show exceptional commitment and contribute to our team's growth." The employees received the news with enthusiasm, feeling valued and appreciated. This not only boosted morale, but also incentivized greater performance and dedication. John, the chef, and the young trainees began showing renewed enthusiasm in their daily tasks. The kitchen buzzed with energy and creativity. Grace also promoted the organization of charity events, following Nick's philosophy of giving back to the community. The first major event was a charity dinner to raise funds for a local homeless shelter. The restaurant was filled with customers and community members eager to support the cause and enjoy a night of excellent food and company. John and his team prepared a special menu for the occasion, showcasing their culinary talents and the progress they had made thanks to the training program. Grace ensured that every detail of the event was perfect, from the decor to the music. The night was a resounding success, raising a significant amount of money for the shelter. During the dinner, Grace addressed the guests with an emotional speech. "Nick taught us the true value of compassion and generosity," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "Today, we honor his memory by helping those in need. Thank you all for your support and for believing in this vision. Together, we can make a difference." Charity events became a regular part of the restaurant's calendar. Grace organized charity dinners, cooking workshops for underprivileged children, and fundraising events for various social causes. The Emperor's Crown became a beacon of hope and support for the community, a place where people could come together to share not only delicious food, but also a sense of belonging and solidarity. Community workshops and volunteer days, involving both employees and customers, became a regular occurrence. Each event strengthened community bonds and underscored the restaurant's commitment to the well-being of others. In addition to her community focus, Grace tirelessly improved the restaurant's internal operations. She introduced new technologies for managing reservations and orders, optimized kitchen processes, and established stronger relationships with suppliers. These improvements increased efficiency and allowed the restaurant to offer even better service. The restaurant's success was reflected in its finances. Revenue increased significantly, allowing Grace to reinvest in the business and her employees. With the additional funds, she offered continuous training to her team, ensuring everyone had the opportunity to grow professionally. One day, while reviewing the financial reports, Grace realized just how much they had accomplished. "We did it," she thought with pride. "We've turned this restaurant into a beacon of hope and community, just as Nick always dreamed." The employees felt the change too. Violet, a longtime waitress, commented, "I've never felt so proud to work here. Grace has transformed this place. It's not just a job, it's a family." Moved by Violet's words, Grace knew they had come far, but she also knew there was more to do. She continued to innovate and improve, always honoring Nick's legacy and serving the community. As the months passed, under Grace's inspiring leadership, the Emperor's Crown flourished. It solidified its position as the community's most beloved restaurant and expanded its influence beyond its walls. Grace's dedication and genuine interest in improving lives made her a respected leader, mentor, and friend. With the restaurant's success, Grace decided it was time to expand. The Emperor's Crown opened several branches across the city, each reflecting Nick's values and philosophy. Each new branch was met with enthusiasm, and the restaurant's name became synonymous with quality, compassion, and community. During the opening of the first branch, Grace reflected on their journey. "Nick, all of this is thanks to you," she thought. "I hope you're proud of what we've achieved." In her inaugural speech, Grace shared heartfelt words. "This is a special moment. Each new branch is a testament to the positive impact we can have. Nick showed us the way, and we will continue forward, honoring his memory." The expansion brought new opportunities and challenges. Grace implemented training programs at each branch and continued charitable initiatives. One afternoon, while reviewing plans for the third branch, Grace found an old photo of her and Nick. "Nick," she whispered, "I miss you every day, but I feel your presence. Everything we've achieved is because of you. Thank you for believing in me." The main restaurant became a place of pilgrimage for many, drawn to the story and legacy that Grace and Nick had built. Grace even established a special corner dedicated to Nick, with photos and mementos celebrating his life. On the anniversary of Nick's death, Grace organized a special dinner in his honor. They shared stories and anecdotes, recalling his kindness and vision. "Nick gave me a second chance when I needed it most," John shared, his voice thick with emotion. "We owe him so much." With tears in her eyes, Grace spoke. "Nick taught us that true success is not only measured in financial terms, but in the positive impact we can have. Today, we honor his memory by continuing his legacy." The dinner concluded with a toast in Nick's honor, a moment filled with emotion and gratitude. The community, united in his memory, pledged to keep his values alive. As the months passed, Grace continued to lead with determination and heart. Every decision was infused with Nick's spirit. The expansion of the Emperor's crown meant a broader impact on the community. Grace's journey had been long and full of challenges, but through each obstacle, she found the strength to keep going, driven by her love for her children and Nick's legacy. Years after the tragedy, Grace's life had blossomed in ways she never imagined. Thanks to her dedication and the restaurant's success, she secured a stable and prosperous future for James and Thomas. The boys, once bullied for their financial struggles, now thrived in school and the community. James, inspired by John and the training program, became a standout apprentice at the restaurant, dreaming of becoming a chef. Thomas, on the other hand, followed in his mother's footsteps, developing an interest in management and finance. Together, the brothers represented the next generation of the Emperor's crown. Financial stability allowed Grace to achieve long-postponed dreams. She bought a house in a safe neighborhood, providing her children with a loving and secure home. The house was decorated with memories of Nick and Leo, honoring the two men who had deeply impacted their lives. One ordinary workday, while reviewing security footage, Grace noticed a young woman rummaging through the trash bins in the back alley. The girl, dressed in worn-out clothes, was desperately eating scraps of food. Grace's heart skipped a beat. The image transported her back to a time when she had been in a similar situation, collecting leftovers to feed her children. Without hesitation, Grace left the restaurant and approached the young woman. "You don't have to do this," she said gently. "Come with me. I'll offer you a hot meal and a safe place." The young woman, surprised and teary-eyed, nodded slowly. As Grace led her inside, she thought of Nick and how he had transformed her life. Now, it was her turn to pay it forward. Serving a hot meal to the young woman, surrounded by the warmth and support of the restaurant community, Grace understood that Nick's legacy lived on in every act of kindness and compassion. With a heart full of love and gratitude, she continued her journey, carrying Nick's legacy and the promise of an abundant future for everyone. Thank you for joining us on this journey through Grace's inspiring story. We hope this tale of overcoming compassion and community has touched your hearts. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and leave your comments. Until next time, remember to always find the strength to move forward, no matter the challenges. See you soon.